So this week, who you are is what you do, rewiring habits for life. So we're going to cover some different topics. I put it in the group chat. Some similar stuff that we're going through. So I want to keep on the trend of this kind of identity change. Even though I don't want to cover the same stuff, it's still good to go over the same stuff, if that makes sense, because you kind of have to revisit it and kind of like keep thinking about it and keep reaffirming it in your minds. Changing your identity and building your habits is not something you just flick a switch, like I've said every week. It's kind of building on it and changing it. So I think that's kind of been the theme for this first like block of these sessions is kind of working on that fundamentally, and then thinking about some other different things around that. So we're going to look at social eating, which is a real big one for a lot of people today, and also to do with some training. So we've not really talked about the kind of training side of stuff, but it's important to kind of know how you can get the most out of that as well. I'm feeling a bit ill today, so my throat is running out. So I've got some tablets in, so I've perked up a bit, but I've been sat at my desk like dying all day. So we'll see how I get through this. But they're the kind of main topics that we'll go through today. So we're going to start on the main trend of the identity first, and then we'll think about different stuff later. So one kind of thing I want you to think about is stop chasing results and start becoming the person who naturally achieves them. So we'll go into what that kind of exactly means. But a lot of people can kind of think about the results all the time. Whereas if we can really think about how we can just naturally achieve them, then the process becomes so much more easier. It's not easy, but if we can again build habits around that, then it's going to make it a lot easier to just naturally be a person who gets fitter and healthier and eats better as a result of our identity changing, rather than just focusing on the kind of practical and technical aspects of becoming healthier. It's more of like a natural thing that we can do. So this is called the identity habit connection. So you've got your habits, you've got this new identity of yourself, and it's just connecting them two together. So most people focus on the results. So losing weight, eating better, going to the gym more. But results alone rarely stick, because results are temporary. So that can be short term, it can be long term, but they're always going to be temporary, depending how consistent you are and how much you kind of follow your plan. Whereas identity can be permanent if you work at that. So that means good identity or bad identity. You can have or should I say like a more negative identity or a more positive identity. So that can be permanent. So you can have that kind of old version of yourself where your habits are bad, you're not that healthier person, or you can have this new identity of yourself where you're a much healthier, happier person, and that is your identity. So instead of thinking about the kind of results side of things all the time, then we need to kind of think about the identity side. So today we're going to explore how to become the type of person who naturally makes the right choices. So big word there is naturally, so we want to be doing it automatic almost. We're not having to think about it, that's just who we are now and who we have kind of moulded to become. So habits are evidence of identity. So all the little things that you do throughout your day, they're evidence of who you are. And every small behaviour is a vote for the person that you are becoming. So I've probably used that in another one or some kind of way of worded that. So all the behaviours that you kind of live by and the decisions that you make, they're a vote for the person that you're becoming tomorrow. So all those decisions and those choices are going to shape who you are in the future. So all I want you to do to start with is just write down who I am today, who I want to be, and one habit that shows I am that person. So I know we've probably covered a little bit of this kind of stuff before, so you can either choose something that you want to keep working on and you've kind of thought of before, or if you want to think of something new and kind of work on that, you can do that as well. So just spend a few minutes. Obviously you can chat to each other about these if you want to as well, or just kind of think about your own stuff. That's it. It's like we went through like the environment kind of thing. Like you've got to help yourself by doing that.
I mean, I don't do it often, but when I do, I can just, and then before I know it, I feel sick and I go.
That's the thing. Like if it's there, you.
If I go to the pictures, I'll buy it, share it back.
It's so easily done.
Well, I mean, for the film stars. So it's not good.
And everyone can do it. Like that's why foods like that is so easy to consume, because it tastes nice and they don't fill you up. You can just keep going and going. So you have to limit yourself by saying, right, that's what I'm going to have. That can go in the back of the cupboard or whatever it is.
I'm reading a book at the minute called Ultra Processed People by Van Tollecken. There's two of them. The doctors are twins, and oh God, it's really making me. It's about why we eat it, why we can't stop eating it, and he's doing a trial of it, and he's put on masses of weight. Just it's making him feel crap. He's got headaches, but he can't stop eating it, and it's all this. It's really. So again, things like that.
Yeah, that's it.
Once you start,
well, it's like the sugar and the salt and that type of stuff. Your body craves it, obviously. That's why when you get into those bad habits of eating that type of stuff, it's hard to get out, because your body just wants it and wants it and wants it. Whereas if you can completely come away from having that, then your body doesn't then crave it, because you've had that period away. I used to have terrible habits when I was like a teenager. Like I'd have my last meal of the day, for example, I'd always have chocolate and crisps afterwards, every single time. Like it was just, whenever I ate them, I was like, I have to have this, because my body's, it's like just a bad habit that I built. And then I realised that I wanted to get into the gym and looking after myself and stuff, and if I carried on eating like that, then I wouldn't have got to where I was, so I just kind of kicked it out, and you obviously don't then crave it. So we build these habits in our lives over a long time, and then it's trying to come away from them and build new ones. So yeah, think about those habits and think about these things that you need to change in the future, and go back to this as well. Like write some more down, write some different ones over time. Like don't overwhelm yourself with too many too soon, but think of one, try to conquer it, and then come back and think of something else that you can improve. But yeah, your habits are voting for your identity. So every choice you make is a tiny statement for who you are becoming. So always think about like these little quotes that I put up. This is to get your mind into being that person all the time, and really force yourself into thinking about this kind of newer version of you, because it definitely can happen. It's just going to take work and it's going to take time, and you just got to keep working on it over the time. So moving on to our next section, so beyond willpower, the science of automatic change. So this is coming back to that word, that kind of automatic, and letting it be natural for you. So we've looked at kind of willpower before, and I've explained a little bit about that. So obviously alone, it's not enough. It's the design, so the structure that you have, the routines and everything. So we're always going to have like a cue for something happening, some incident, some kind of part of your day that forces something to happen. And then you've got your routine. So this is the thing that helps you stay consistent with everything. If you've got routine, it's much easier to stay in the kind of process of becoming better. And then you've got a reward loop, so a habit loop. So something that can signal that the routine's worked, and you're creating some positive change out of it, and then can you have some kind of reward, whether it's physical or emotional or intrinsic kind of rewards as well. So something within yourself, even just satisfaction of doing something good for yourself is a reward in itself. So we've got to think about this kind of like structure. And then, like I just said, so environment and triggers shape behaviours. So if you have certain things triggering you to do certain things, it's always going to challenge you. It's gonna make your life harder. So that's gonna make the automatic version of you not be able to kind of grow. So this is why the design of your whole week and your whole month really matters, because if we can create a really strong structure around everything that you're doing, then it's going to be a lot easier to stick to that. Whereas if we're always going to have little things challenging us, even if it's very small, like a decision to have a share bag of something, or if your cupboard's got certain things in that you shouldn't really be having, the design matters. Again, like eating out socially, that type of stuff, you need to kind of plan a little bit better beforehand to make that a little bit easier. We are going to come on to that, so I won't go into that too much. But yeah, our environment and the triggers that are happening shape our behaviours, so we need to create a nice solid structure with exercise, with movement, with eating, all in one. And again, tiny repeated behaviours compound into massive identity shifts. So we're not talking about big changes, we're just talking about tiny little things all the way throughout your kind of week in your life. If we can start to build these little things over and over and over, then it's going to make it a lot easier to stick to. So if you can write a list of triggers that lead to unhealthy behaviours now. So for example, I've got one down here. So I get hungry at 3 p.m. I then just snack automatically because of that. So what could you do to replace that? So for example, if you are getting hungry at 3 p.m, you've probably not eaten enough throughout the earlier part of your day. You've not had enough protein, you've not had enough fibre. So that means that you're getting hungry and you're craving some kind of snacks. And then obviously that's where it goes downhill. So what could you do to replace that? We can have a nice protein-rich breakfast, a kind of mid-morning, late-morning snack or something like that has that good quality food in, and then that's going to stop your hunger. So yeah, just think of something that kind of is triggering you at the moment. Cool. So again, try to work on these and then go back and think of different things in the future. So studies show that environmental cues account for kind of 40 to 50% of our eating behaviours. So this is why I'm kind of like talking about it, is because it is a huge chunk of, how you get results and how you change. So yeah, we've really got to think about our environment, because that's shaping up half of kind of your decision making and half of how you perceive anything throughout your kind of your routine. So we've got to change these things, we've got to work on them, and we've got to make sure that they stick, and you have to work on them. They're not going to change magically. Like, you have to eliminate them out yourself. Like, nobody's going to change it but yourself, so you have to kind of really work on that. So they are super important. So we're going to go into a different section now, so the neuroscience of habit formation and motivation. So it sounds really technical, but it's not, I promise. So essentially we want to go into a bit of science and go into the reasons why, because it's always nice to kind of factually know why we're doing things. So obviously we all know about dopamine. So this is about anticipation and not pleasure. We also need to think about rewarding progress, so not just the outcomes that strengthens our habit loops, okay? And then we've got the Goldilocks zone. So we've all seen that story, we all know that one. So this is of challenge. So habits stick when they are slightly hard, but not overwhelming. So we've got to try and think about things that are challenging, but not too challenging, and obviously not underwhelming either. We have to take ourselves out of the comfort zone to actually be challenged and work on things, but not too far that we can't really achieve it. So it's just getting that kind of, just right type thing from the story, okay? So all these things are super important when we think about this. So what I want you to kind of do is just write down one habit that you can achieve tomorrow. Try to visualize the reward you'll feel after. So going back to that kind of habit loop reward, I want you to think about what you can do tomorrow, so something realistic, and then how that's going to make you feel afterwards. It's just so important. I know it's easy for me to say and it's harder to do, but it's just where you want to put that on your priority levels of your week, and how important is it for you to change. Because if you really want to make a success of all this, then that needs to be right up there. So your brain craves evidence that you are capable, and small wins become proof. So if we're putting all these things into place and you're actually doing them, you're going to create pleasure out of that, because you're going to see those little wins along the way. You're going to see your body changing, you're going to see your weight coming down, you're going to see yourself getting stronger, your energy levels are going to be better, you're going to be working harder in the gym, so you're going to perform better. Everything's going to get better because of what you're putting in, and ultimately that comes from what you're putting inside your diet. So when we talk about all this, I know it's boring because we don't want to sit and plan about food and we don't want to eat healthy all the time. But if we can relate that to the outcome and what it actually brings you, then it makes it a bit more kind of tangible and why you want to do it. So we've just got to really think about the outcome and how that's going to make us feel if we succeed with it. So if we can take a bit of time to plan and prepare and actually go to the food shop and get the right types of foods in, it's going to make you feel good. You're going to feel better because of it. You're going to sleep better. You're going to have more energy. You're going to look better and feel more confident, and all the reasons why you've come here and why you've started this journey. So your brain's going to crave that, and when you do get those little small wins along the way, your brain's going to want more of it. That's how your brain works, basically. So just like when your brain craves sugar because you've eaten sugar, it's exactly the same on the other side. It craves more positive reward. So if we can feed it that, then it's going to want more of that. So we've just got to give the brain the right stuff, basically. So moving on to social eating. So this is a huge one for everyone, obviously. This is where everything falls down usually for most people. We can eat pretty good through the week. Socially on a weekend, that's where it all crumbles sometimes. Again, going back to my history, I used to do this all the time as well. I mean, fortunately, I've always had a really fast metabolism, so I've never kind of been overweight. I've always played sport and stuff like that. But it still hindered me from kind of building muscle and what I really wanted to achieve in the gym. Like, it just limited me. I was just kind of very slim, and I wasn't getting what I wanted out of the effort I was putting in the gym. So even though I wasn't kind of weight loss, so I can't relate to that, I was still not achieving what I wanted to. So I ate really well through the week. This was before I was in a relationship, so I was going out every Saturday night with my mates, drinking quite a lot. Sunday I'd have just a pizza pretty much all day, and I'd just be obviously on the sofa not doing much because I was hungover. So my diet was great through the week, but then it was pretty bad at the weekend. Like it was not serving me, and that would then feed into the week because I was tired, I was sluggish, I wasn't mentally focused. Obviously my training would have suffered from that as well because I've not been feeding the right stuff. So it makes such an impact because it's not just affecting those days on the weekend, which is still a big portion of your week, obviously. It's affecting the days leading into the week as well. So I'm not saying everyone's like that, but in some way or another, some people can obviously have that effect. So we need to work on social eating, and we need to work on how we can again, going back to the word automatically be able to succeed in those social occasions. And it's not always the weekend as well. Some people socially go through the week as well, if it's work events, etc. So we're going to go into ways that we can really, really help this. So again, most people don't struggle Monday to Thursday. They lose that deficit on the social meals, the weekends, the events that you go to. And the goal is not to avoid social eating. We don't want to cut it out. We don't want to avoid social, stuff that we're doing with friends and family, because that's part of life. It's just having a strategy for it so it stops derailing you all the time. So we need a strategy to be able to go into those social events so we're confident and we know that we can still do what we want to do, but there's a strategy behind it. We're not just kind of blindly going into it and then just whatever happens. So the key points to this So decisions are way easier made in advance, not at the table or wherever you're going to be eating. If we can make decisions before, then we already know how to plan and kind of execute it better when we're there. So pre-decide before emotion, smell, peer pressure, and alcohol obviously kick in as well. So if we can pre-decide what we're going to have, you know, we can't be exact all the time, but, you know, pretty much roughly guide it. We're going to make much better decisions, obviously, than in that moment. When emotion comes into it, when you smell the food, you know, peer pressure and all that type of stuff as well. If we can pre-decide, it's going to make it a lot easier. So we just need a controlled calorie event. So this beats restriction, so you're not restricting yourself. It's going to avoid that kind of binge that we often can do as well. And then obviously guilt comes on the back of that. So we want to avoid all of that happening. So you don't need to win the day. You don't need to be perfect on that day. You just need to not lose massively. You just not need to completely throw it out the window and then have so much to claw back that you're never going to make progress because it's such a huge kind of deficit to come from. So there are two types of social eating that require different strategies as well. So two different types. Number one is predictable, planned meals. So birthdays, dinners, Christmas, date night, whatever it is, they're planned, they're controlled. We know they're coming, we can prepare for them. And then we've got ambush meals. So someone brings food to work, or your last minute kind of decision to go to the pub, something that's kind of just been thrown at you and you've not had time to decide. Okay, so these two we're going to have a look at and think about, you know, how we can better plan and prepare for that. So first we're going to go through some simple and practical strategies when you're eating socially. So number one, high protein. We always talk about that because it's so important. High protein, high volume before you go out. So this means that you're going to arrive 50% full. So for example, if you've got your normal diet, if we get to a Saturday and we know that we're going to be going out on an evening, if we can fill up with a really good meal earlier in the day, high protein, high volume, so lots of vegetables, you know, really low calorie, but it's going to really fill you up, then that means that decision later in the evening is going to be a lot easier because you're not going to overconsume too much because you're already, you know, have some kind of satiety within you. So that means that you can still enjoy whatever you're going to be eating, but you're just not going to fully overconsume. You're already kind of in some way full. So yeah, high protein, high volume, and drinking lots of water as well. So that's going to fill you up. So if you can kind of focus on that, you know, earlier than the event, it's going to make it a little bit easier when it actually comes to the event. Scan the menu before you go. So again, picking before emotions. So wherever you're going, check the menu, check what's a little bit better of an option than some, and then we can keep that kind of control. And we're not just going to, you know, completely losing it. And then choose one indulgence lever. So just one. Whether it's a drink, a dessert, or the kind of portion that you're choosing, pick one, not all of them. So when we're going out socially, we have to have some restriction. We can't just say we're going to have everything. We need to have some kind of restriction there. So if you pick one thing that you're going to indulge in, then it just keeps that control, but it keeps the enjoyment as well. We're kind of, you know, keeping that balance of you know, what we need to achieve. And again, slow down. So 20-minute meal speed rule. So this allows satiety to kind of signal in your body. So I know when we get nice food, it's quite easy to kind of get it down quite quick, but take your time, create conversation whilst you're eating. That allows it to spread it out, and you're going to feel a lot, you know, fuller because of it. So if we can, you know, start to think about these things when we do eat socially, we're going to be a lot better when we're there. It's just really thinking about it and kind of putting it into practice. And I know it's not always easy because when we go out socially, we don't want to think about these things, but that's why I say think about it before, you know, pre-plan it and you know, plan before emotion. So plan before the event because it's going to make it a lot easier. So ambush meals. What we need to think about is portion control instead of just abstaining. So instead of going to the pub and saying, I'm not drinking, I'm not having anything tonight, it's okay, we've just got to control it. We've just got to have one or two, keep the control, but still, don't fully exclude yourself from it, because it's going to make it harder to stick to that long term. And then an anchor rule, so protein first, veg next, indulgence last. So just like I said before, if we can get that protein and kind of high volume food, which is the vegetables, in earlier in the day or before that event, it's going to make it a lot easier to restrict it afterwards. And then just stop when you're satisfied, so not stuffed, okay? So minimize the damage. We're not on about perfection when we go out, we're just minimizing the damage, because this is where people just go wrong. It's, I've let myself down, I've had X, Y, Z, I'm just gonna carry on going like that for the rest of the night and tomorrow probably. That's where we do the damage, because we're going into that, we feel like we've failed, and then we're just gonna fail even bigger. Whereas if we can just keep a bit of control, the damage is going to be much less, and then we can just get back to the normal plan the next day. And then instead of a 2,000 calorie deficit having to get clawed back, you're only a 500 calorie deficit, and it's much easier to work that off the next day. And if you can think of that over weeks and months, it's huge. It makes such a big difference. So instead of these big binges and these indulgences, we just got to say, right, we're going to have a little bit, and then we're just going to cut ourselves off and then move on. Then you can feel that satisfaction that you haven't done massive damage, and it's going to be a lot easier to then come back the next week and work hard again. So here's a bit of an equation, if you can get that into your brain. It took me a while to write it down and think of it as well. So if your evening intake increases, then all we need to do is reduce liquid calories or reduce snacks, and then increase steps the next day. So it's pretty simple. If we go out in an evening and we know we're increasing that food, all we need to do is then reduce some kind of liquid calories, wherever that's factoring in, or reduce your snacks, and then just get some more steps in the next day. Steps are going to be your best way to increase some kind of expenditure. Easier than doing a workout. So if we can, the next day get a big walk in or something like that, reduce your kind of poor quality food, snacks or drinks, then it's going to be able to kind of just change that balance that you've over-consumed in that evening. So social meal strategy. What I want you to do is write down a planned or ambushed kind of event that kind of comes up in your life. One lever or control, so whether it's a drink, a dessert, a portion, and then one pre-decision for the event, so what can you pre-decide to do, and then a day before or after compensation strategy, so what can you do the day before or after to kind of compensate for what you're going to have. Cool. Again, I'll leave that with you for this one. Think about some different things, come back to this booklet, keep these, and then you can, factor things in when they come up in your life. So just to kind of summarize on that, progress isn't ruined by social eating, it's just ruined by entering it blind and not being prepared for it. A 2-minute plan can prevent a 2,000 calorie mistake, okay? So literally just taking the time very quickly before these events to plan it and kind of make better decisions is going to save you such a huge kind of mistake, basically. So again, it just takes a little bit of work and it just takes a bit of time, but you've just got to really do it and kind of put that into your kind of system. If we can think about these things a lot more often, write down a very quick plan, it's going to make it a lot easier. So, training for fat loss, what actually works? So, this is one of my favourite topics, to be fair, like the more physical side of stuff, obviously. So, there's a lot that we can get out of our training. So, it doesn't matter who you are, like, a lot of people think that you know, training more advanced has to be people that are more advanced, but it can be literally anybody. It can be if you've just started, no matter what age or ability, we can get more out of our training, and it's gonna help you with your results. It's gonna help with your body, your weight loss, you know, your toning, whatever you want to get out of it. It's not always for men that want to build muscle. It can be for anybody. So these techniques, what I use in my training, they're going to relate exactly to you guys as well. And if we can get more out of our training, it makes it more efficient. So that means that the hours that you're putting in are multiplied because you're actually getting more out of it. So you've heard the term, you know, work smarter, not harder. So instead of, you know, just working really, really hard, you know, 5 hours a week of training, which a lot of people do, they're just kind of grinding themselves down. They're not actually making it efficient work. So there's so many people out there that just go into training and they want to leave absolutely broken, sweating in tears because they feel like they've worked super hard. But there's smarter ways for us to train, and I know this better than anyone else because I've been doing it a long time. So you know, we need to kind of focus on these things that I'm going to come on to. So first up, training. I've said this, I think it was last session that we did. You know, training doesn't burn huge calories, but it does dictate what you lose, so fat or muscle. So most people do fat loss training completely backwards with this, okay? So lifting weights protects our metabolism. It's muscle retention, stops metabolic slowdown basically. So the more muscle we have, the better that becomes. Progressive overload, we need to think about over just random sweat. So progressive overload basically means making something more difficult, gradually making something better. That's why we do the strength tracking, because we want to see you gradually getting a little bit better each week. And it doesn't always have to be like the weights that you're lifting. It can be the reps, you know, the amount of reps that you're doing, the control at which you're lifting the weights, the range of motion as well. So whether you're squatting deeper, Riddy, I know you've got a lot better with that from the start. Again, same with you, Angela. So these little things can all signify progressive overload rather than just getting a random sweat on. So a lot of people, you know, I see so many different, you know, boot camps and HIIT workouts and, you know, different gyms doing different things and just trying to get everybody working really, really super hard, which is great for your heart and lungs, but not necessarily good for building muscle and kind of losing fat, okay? So this is why the system that we kind of use is the best. So, and then we think about NEAT. So I did bring that up last time. So basically activity that's not included in your exercise routine. So walking basically. So yeah, 2 to 3 times more daily calorie burn than workouts. So just our walking around, that's why we focus on steps and we try to get that up because it's a big part of your calorie burn, bigger than the gym. And then we've got things like, you know, intervals and finishes. So they are optional, but they're not the foundations of what we do. So that's why that conditioning block that we do at the end, that's kind of like the smallest part of what we do. I'm sure you're glad to know that, and that wasn't a full hour. So the reason for that is because, again, we want to improve our heart and lungs, but it's not the big, it's not like the needle pusher. It's not the thing that does the work. It's not the thing that really helps. The strengthening, the range of movement, the real kind of training that we need to do to get that progress is what we do the bulk of. And again, consistency, I misspelled that. Consistency over intensity for sustainable fat loss training. So again, a lot of people just burn themselves out by doing these super ridiculous high intensity workouts where they're going on a spin bike for hours and hours and hours, or doing these HIIT workouts that they're just kind of, you know, just way too intense, and they can't stay consistent with it because it burns you out, it disrupts sleep and recovery, and you can't sustain it. That's why the reason we've built this system is for you to stay consistent and consistently improve week on week, month on month, and that's what gets real progress with it. So how to really get the most out of your training for more enhanced results. So control over speed. So time under tension is often disregarded, okay? So whenever we go into an exercise, we want to get it over and done with as fast as possible, don't we? Because it's painful. But that's kind of defeating the object, yeah? So one thing I really want you to think about if you want to get better at this and improve in the gym is time under tension. So tempo basically is what we call it in the gym world. So this is the tempo at which you're doing an exercise. So for a squat, for example, when you're on the way down, that's called an eccentric contraction. It's the lowering down phase. If you just go really, really fast, that's just gravity doing the work. Whereas if you take it nice and slow and controlled, that's your muscles doing the work. And it's the same for any exercise that you do. If we can do it in a controlled motion, we're going to get more out of it. So our muscles are doing the work rather than gravity. And if we can do that consistently throughout a workout, 3 workouts a week, 12 workouts a month, over the course of a year, it's going to make a big difference. Yeah, it really, really does make a huge difference. So what I want you to think about is when you next go to the gym is how controlled can I do this exercise, not how fast I can finish it, basically. All right. And then again, like I just mentioned, range of motion. So to get more out of your workouts, full range needs to be executed. So this is why, we always try to encourage you to get deeper in your squat. I keep talking about squat because it's quite an easy one to kind of relate to. But just for anything, so like push-ups, as far down to the floor as you can. All these different types of exercises, if we get more range of motion, then we're basically recruiting more muscle. If we're only going half of the way, then we're only getting half the kind of muscle contraction. So if we can start to kind of think about these things a lot more when we're actually working out, we're going to get so much more out of it. So instead of doing, your 3 hours a week, that's going to be a lot more powerful 3 hours. You're going to get more out of it. So instead of a month of training, you've basically done 3 months of training. I've been sneezing all day as well. And then the next one, now this is a really hard one to get, but it's taken me a long time to kind of get it, and I'm still kind of working on it, but it's a thing called mind to muscle. So the better connection you can get your brain to work with your muscles, the better results you're going to get. So out of interest, do you ever do an exercise and think about the muscle that you're actually using? You just kind of do the exercise. Yeah, I don't blame you. Like that's a normal thing to do. But again, another thing I want you to try to do is think about the muscle that you're actually working, because it's going to actually signal it and it's going to engage a lot more. So again, going back to the squats, think about your glutes. They're the real muscles that are working in that exercise. If you can engage and really kind of get your central nervous system to switch on to the muscle, it's going to work a lot better and you're going to get better results because of that. So these are really important things that we can think about when we train, and it's going to make a big difference if you can think about that. And then we've got a thing called mechanical failure over technical failure, okay? So we want to be failing due to muscle fatigue rather than a breakdown on form, yeah? So we know we're not working hard enough if we're not kind of coming to some kind of mechanical failure. So basically a good one when we're doing the overhead press, we've done 4 or 5 reps and they've gone up all right, and then that 6th rep we really can't push, so that's mechanical failure. That means you've pushed your muscle to the limit basically. Whereas technical failure is if we're doing the press and then all of a sudden our back goes far back and we're trying to push with our legs, then we kind of cheat in the kind of exercise basically. So we want to keep good form, good technique, and if you can't go anymore, then that's you're done. That's you've taken your body to mechanical failure, and that's kind of what we want sometimes. Yeah, that's what we want to get to, because it means we've pushed our body and our muscle to a range that it's not seen before. So then when we finish, your body has to then recover and repair. So those muscle fibers that have been really broken down, then they repair and they get stronger, and then that's why you can come back next week and you can get that 6th rep. Yeah, it doesn't always work like that obviously, but that's the kind of concept of it. So I know this is a lot to think about, and it's kind of hard to kind of put it into practice, but if we can pick 1 or 2 of those that you can kind of start to think of over the next week or two, you're going to get a lot more out of the workouts. And if you really want to, take this a lot further, if you want to be one of these, gym people that gets really good and, get really, really strong, you can do it. Doesn't matter who you are, you can really get there. It's putting these things into place and starting to think about that a little bit more over the next, months and years. And honestly, this takes years to conquer. Like it really does. It takes time. But if we can start to put it into place, then we're going to get better at it. Okay. So most people try to out-train bad nutrition. Yeah, the way to win is by stacking predictable nutrition with simple, repeatable training done consistently. So coming to the gym, consistently working, pushing yourselves as well. So coming outside of your comfort zone with those things that I've done, and then just having that predictable nutrition that's automatic, and we've got a week and we know what we're eating, like I said earlier. Yeah, if we can just combine those two things, then we're really going to be making moves forward. So very quickly, write down one thing you're going to focus on improving in your training this week that I've just talked about. And that's us. Okay, so yeah, the next one that I'm going to do, because we've got the end of year awards at the end of November, we're going to do that, and then what I'm going to do is a beginning of December one, so a little bit different, so that we can prepare for Christmas. So we'll do like a Christmas themed kind of how do we get through Christmas nutritionally, what should we be focusing on, and then it just kind of gives you a bit of a goal and a target to work on towards that. Yeah, again, today it's just working on that identity change and then just thinking about them new things that we kind of discussed towards the end. So yeah, hopefully you've got something from that, but again, like I would just like to kind of reaffirm this to everyone, is just go away and put this into place. Don't just put that in a cupboard somewhere and then not think about it. Revisit it and go over it, because it is really important. And just put the steps into place, like take action on what you're kind of writing down. And yeah, you can get there. All right, guys.